It was my birthday and I sat alone in the living room, snow drifting quietly outside the window. In my hands was a fresh diagnosis from the hospital. The doctor had told me the old injury in my lower back had flared up again. He calmly explained I needed surgery soon, or I might lose the ability to walk, maybe even end up bedridden. It'll cost a little over 30 grand, he said softly, removing his glasses. I nodded and smiled faintly, but inside my chest tightened. I checked my bank account, just over $10,000 in checking, and a CD that wouldn't mature for another 3 months. Pulling it early meant losing a good chunk of interest. After sitting with it a while, I called David, my oldest. I told him about the surgery. He sounded irritated, like I was interrupting something. Didn't you usually manage with therapy when your back acted up? Is it really worth surgery at your age? He asked. I stayed calm. The doctor said it's different this time. The disc is pressing on a nerve. There was a pause, then a short skeptical laugh. Are you sure they're not scaring you into it? Hospitals love squeezing money out of old folks. We just moved, things are tight here. I can't pour money into a black hole. I told him I wasn't asking for a gift, just to borrow $10,000 until my CD matured. That's still a waste, he said. You should use your savings. Don't come to us every time something goes wrong. Then he hung up. I sat at the kitchen table, my old wooden chair creaking beneath me. The phone slipped from my fingers and landed with a soft thud. It buzzed once and went silent. In that moment, I felt like an old boiler room lamp, still flickering, barely hanging on. Days later, I saw a photo David and Melissa posted online, smiling on a beach in Hawaii. Family unwind time. Every penny well spent, the caption read. I stared at it a few seconds before powering off my phone. No words. No confrontation. I simply walked into the bedroom and reached for a small, deep brown box tucked on the top shelf of the closet. Not for jewelry, but something I'd kept from my years on the line at Harbor Machinery, my personal last resort. I opened the box at the dining table, knowing it was finally time to use what was inside. I'm Grace Whitman. I worked 38 years at one of Pittsburgh's oldest machine plants. I retired just last year. My husband passed away when our boys were young, so I raised them alone, worked overtime, stretched every dollar. David, the eldest, was the golden child, smart, polite, responsible. Top of his class, full scholarship to the University of Pennsylvania. He became a math teacher, married Melissa, a fellow teacher. He used to tell me, Mom, you don't have to scrimp anymore. I've got you now. Eric, my younger son, was more hands-on. He went into auto repair after high school, learned from the ground up, and eventually opened his own shop. On opening day, grease still on his hands, he told me, Don't worry, Mom. I'll take care of you too. Business picked up and he bought a place in the city. My old coworkers used to tease, Grace, you did great. Both boys turned out solid. I'd smile and agree, heart warmed by pride. That day, like always, I went to the local market for groceries. Just as I turned a corner, a delivery truck crashed nearby, potatoes and cabbages everywhere. An older man panicked beside the wreckage. My wife's waiting on her meds, he said. Let me help. I told him and jumped in to gather the vegetables. He grabbed my hand, eyes teary. Thank you. You've saved me. I brushed it off with a smile, but then a sharp jolt shot through my back. That old injury again. I slid to the ground, leaning against a wall as bystanders called an ambulance. In the ER, breath tight, I called David. I hurt my back helping a man. The doctor says I might need surgery. Kids' voices echoed behind him. Mom, I'm with students right now. Let them check first. I'll call later. He hung up. The test results confirmed it. Disc herniation, compressed nerves. The doctor said surgery was urgent. Cost? About $35,000. I had 15 in checking, the rest locked in a CD. I hesitated, then called David again. He picked up, annoyed. I'm prepping for class. Make it fast. I told him I was short 10 grand. I don't have it, he replied. Kids' summer camp school stuff, it's all tight. Are you sure this isn't a scam? You've got to be careful. I steadied my voice. David, this is from the doctor. He sighed and said, maybe ask Eric. He might be in a better place financially. Then he hung up. Next I called Eric. He answered on the third ring, the noise of traffic behind him. Mom, I'm in a meeting. What's wrong? I told him about my injury and asked for help. I can't, he said quickly. Business has been rough. Loans, rent, it's too much. Besides, didn't you get hurt helping someone? Shouldn't he pay? My throat tightened. Please, just this once, I said, reminding him how I helped him start that shop. He sighed. I've got my own problems. We'll talk later. He hung up. I held the phone to my ear long after the call ended. Lying back in that hospital bed, memories surged. The long shifts, cold nights, patched clothes, sick kids in my arms. I thought I'd made it through the worst. That maybe I'd finally rest. But I was wrong. I had 2 sons, a home, a pension. I wasn't alone, not officially. Yet I felt like I was stranded on some island. That night I barely slept. A woman in the next bed rose to use the bathroom, her daughter gently helping her. Take your time, Mom, she whispered. I stared at the ceiling, wide awake. To my surprise, David showed up the next morning. He brought coffee, looking tired, but not worried, just dutiful. Are you sure this hospital is legit? He asked. No. How are you? Just suspicion. I sat up, ignoring the pain. I trust them. The doctor explained everything. I need this surgery. David frowned. You're being emotional. Conservative treatment could work. My heart sank. This wasn't concern, it was about dodging the cost. I asked softly, would you really let me end up bedridden? His tone stiffened. Mom, I've got my own pressures. You need to think beyond yourself. He left after 20 minutes. Eric never came. He only texted a few times, no visits, no real help. One afternoon, I watched the woman's son peel an apple for her. His hands calm and practiced. The tenderness made my chest ache. I turned away and pretended to sleep. I wasn't jealous of her having a son. I was jealous her son remembered who she was. That she was more than a signature, more than a duty. I remembered David's asthma attacks, running barefoot through snow, 2 different shoes on. Eric's broken arm, the loans I took, the shifts I pulled. None of it felt like sacrifice back then. It was just being a mom. But now one son thinks I'm wasting money, the other wonders if I'm being scammed. I kept asking myself, was I wrong to put my faith in them? Stories about parents abandoned by children used to feel distant. Now I wasn't so sure I wasn't next. So I called Bill Simmons, my old coworker from Harbor Mechanics. Grace, what's going on? Heard you're in the hospital, he said. I told him everything. He was quiet, then said, don't worry about money. You helped me when my wife was sick. I never forgot. I protested. He shut me down just like old times. Send me your bank info. Your health comes first. The next day the money showed up. I scheduled the surgery. Recovery was quiet. David and Eric sent the occasional "How are you?" texts, but nothing more. Bill came often, brought fruit, chatted, told me his wife started baking again. Slowly I saw what family really meant. 3 weeks after I was discharged, I turned 65. I sent out 3 invites, David, Eric, and Bill. On the day of the party, David arrived late. Melissa laughed it off. We've been so swamped. Didn't even grab a gift. I smiled. Glad you're here. Eric and Jenna had come earlier. She was in the kitchen with soup on the stove. Eric was chopping vegetables. Mom, we're doing this right. I learned a new recipe for you. Dinner flowed. Melissa griped about her boss. David moaned about work politics. Eric talked shop. I smiled faintly, picking up a rib, but deep down something heavy pressed on my chest. When Melissa's phone lit up, I noticed the lock screen. Her on a beach, holding their son. I knew that photo. It was from the Hawaii trip, the one they took while I lay in a hospital bed, unsure if I'd ever walk again. They'd said money was tight, but they'd gone to Hawaii. I didn't say a word, just sipped my soup and let their show play out. Then I stood and quietly walked to my room. A moment later I returned with the box. Small, but each step I took made it feel weighty like a ticking bomb. I placed it gently on the table. Jenna leaned in. "What's this, Grace?" Eric joked. "Family heirloom?" David paused. Melissa lowered her phone. I ran my hand over the lid and said evenly, "This box. I've kept it for 20 years and today on my birthday, I think." Eric glanced at me and for a second, I caught the guilt flickering in his eyes. I looked over at Bill, who sat quietly at the far end of the table, as steady as he'd always been during his decades working at the factory. He was never loud, never pushy, but he always showed up. Thankfully, I wasn't completely alone in this. When things got tough, I had someone who didn't hesitate. Bill stepped in and handed me the money for my surgery. No questions asked. "Then I turned to you." I lifted my hand from the box, my voice turning icy and sharp. "You were the one who taught me that family doesn't always mean responsibility." The room fell silent. Melissa swallowed hard. After a long pause, David finally spoke up. "Mom, you said you'd tell us when you figured it out. What exactly are you trying to say? We have jobs, responsibilities too. You make it sound like we were supposed to drop everything." "Busy?" I cut him off, voice rising before I could rein it in. "Were you busy when you were lying on the beaches of Hawaii?" David's face drained of color. Melissa's fork clattered against her plate. Eric turned toward him, eyebrows pulling together. "Wait, Hawaii? You told me school was packed and you were buried in grading." David's voice tightened. "It was vacation. Paid time off. And we used our own money. Mom, you can't just hold it over us that we didn't give you money." I took out my phone, swiped once and held it up. A photo from Bill's social media. Melissa on the beach in a swimsuit. Their son in her arms, palm trees and blue skies in the background. "You said you had no money. No time. Meanwhile, I was in a hospital bed waiting for surgery, and you were drinking coconut water under palm trees." I turned to David. "You teach ethics. Responsibility. Every day. How do you stand there and lecture your students when this is how you live?" Melissa flushed red. "Grace, that's not fair. You're exaggerating. We were stressed too, mortgage loans. We didn't have anything left to offer." I turned toward Eric, voice lower than before. "What about you, Eric? You told me things were tight. But the week I got out, I stopped by your shop. I saw your ledger, 5-figure deposits, one after the next." Eric stared down, ears burning. His words came out strained like they hurt to say. "Mom, I didn't mean it like that. I wasn't trying to ignore you. I was just scared. If I gave you the money and something went wrong, I'd lose it." I gave a short, bitter laugh. "So that's what I'm worth to you? A $10,000 loan weighed against whether I can pay it back? When you were kids, I skipped meals, worked overtime, wore secondhand clothes so you could have new ones. I stayed up with you when you were sick. But when it was me in that hospital bed, all I got were excuses. No time, no money. Yet you found both for vacations and beachside hotels." I motioned toward Bill, who sat quietly on the side. "He's not even blood, but he wired the full amount for my surgery. He showed up, brought fruit, sat with me. And from you too. Just the occasional, 'How are you feeling today?' Like you were checking the forecast." Bill rubbed the back of his neck. "Grace, maybe you don't need to go into all that." "Yes, I do." I stood abruptly, the chair scraping across the floor. "You say you love me, but I've seen no proof of it. I didn't invite you here for birthday cards or updates on your stressful jobs. I asked you here to show you something." I opened the box. Inside, 2 stacks of cash, a passbook, and a sheet of yellowed stationery. The burden I'd carried for weeks now lay out in the open. The letter read, I, Grace Whitman, hereby declare that half of my estate goes to Mr. Bill Simmons in gratitude. The rest will go toward my care. No other familial claims will be acknowledged. Silence followed. Melissa was the first to speak, voice high and sharp. You're giving your savings and house to someone else? I met her gaze calmly, the way someone does when they've stopped fearing. I'm repaying a debt. Bill helped me when I had no one. No demands, just kindness. You too? You only reminded me how alone I really am. Eric sprang to his feet, eyes red. Mom, I was wrong. That day you called, I had the money. I just panicked. I didn't know how to fix it. I was ashamed. He pulled out a check. Here, $10,000. Please take it. I pushed the check gently back to him, a sad smile tugging at my lips. Now? You think this was ever about money? My voice wasn't loud, but it landed like a blow. All my life I saved so you could have more. I gave everything, my time, health, peace of mind. When I needed a little help, you said you were too busy. You thought someone was trying to scam me. You couldn't even offer trust. David's face turned red, fists clenched. Mom, how can you be this harsh? We're your sons. I looked at him, no anger, just a deep tiredness. Sons? Do you know who sat by my side for over 2 weeks in the hospital? Who asked if I was in pain? Not you. Just Bill, who isn't even family. He brought fruit. He stayed with me. The room went so still it felt heavy. David stared at the floor. Eric didn't move. I closed the box and pulled it into my arms. My voice, firm and clear, cut through the air. I'll repay every penny to Bill. As for the estate, it's all signed and notarized. There's nothing left to debate. I stood, placed a hand on the chair behind me, and turned to leave. Mom, wait, where are you going? Eric rushed forward. I didn't turn around. I'm moving into Riverbend with Bill. We've already arranged everything. It's quiet with a kitchen, a garden, and friends. No one there treats me like a burden. You won't have to check in anymore. No birthday calls. Nothing. At the door, warm sunlight fell on my shoulders. Behind me, Melissa sobbed quietly. David's voice cracked. Mom! But I didn't stop. I walked forward, more clear than I had been in years. Happiness doesn't come from begging to be loved. It comes from knowing someone will catch you not out of duty but because they care. Real family is empathy, not blood. That wooden box didn't just hold money. It held the last chance I would ever give them. And that chance was gone. We had filled up a whole line of tables, every seat taken. The director even asked a local newspaper to come report on it. In their article, someone described me as a pine tree in the winter, still and steady even through the wind. I didn't feel like I earned that. I wasn't trying to be strong. I had just finally found peace. That night, I sat out on the balcony under the cold, clear sky. Stars spread wide overhead. Bill handed me a mug of warm apple cider with a pinch of cinnamon. He looked at me and asked, Do you still miss them? I paused and thought. I missed the version of them I believed in. He stayed silent, just gently tapped his mug against mine. To the woman who finally let go of the fantasy, he said. I clinked my glass against his and whispered, Cheers! In this second part of life, I stopped waiting for someone to return, because I wasn't standing in that place anymore. My name is David. I found myself at the entrance to the retirement home, holding a letter in my hand. Unopened, untouched, no creases. Even the word Mom written by me on the front was exactly as I'd sent it. It was the third letter. She hadn't answered any of them. I had told myself I was okay with no longer being the center of her world. But when I held that envelope untouched and sealed, something in me quietly broke. She truly wasn't coming back. I thought of her birthday, the day we were all gathered at the table. She held that wooden box like it was heavier than just paper and money. Her face was calm but different, almost like a stranger. I thought maybe she was just old, emotional, wanting to revisit the past. But instead she pulled back a curtain none of us ever touched before. She brought up responsibility. She didn't scream. She didn't sob. She just calmly laid out every word we'd ever said, every action we took, every excuse we made, and put them all into the light. I remember sitting there, my scalp tingling, my cheeks burning. Melissa sat next to me, nervously bouncing her leg, waiting for a cue or something from me. Anything to help explain what was happening. But I had nothing to give. Because what she pulled from that box wasn't money, it was the bill. The total cost of a life spent fixing our messes, holding things together without ever being asked what she paid to do it. I always imagined she'd eventually explode. Throw something, slam a door, yell. But she didn't. She simply said, "I'll pay back. The agreement's signed. From now on, I won't be your burden." Then she left, without turning around. That night I drank too much. Melissa ranted about how I'd embarrassed her, how her own mom was dramatic too. But I didn't argue, because deep down I knew this wasn't about her. It was me. It's not that I didn't love my mother. I just assumed she'd always be there. I remembered those gloves she stitched for me as a child. The nights she stayed awake with me when I had a fever. Those memories were still bright. What I'd never really thought about was that she could grow older, that she could feel pain, that she could lose hope. That realization hit me the first time I looked again at Melissa's Hawaii picture. Her laughing on the beach, hair messy, Ben beside her. The date on that photo? Same week my mom was in a hospital bed, waiting for surgery money. That's when I saw the truth about myself. I remembered the second phone call she made. The way her voice carried hope, but also careful restraint. Like she didn't want to sound desperate. And what did I say? "Are you sure it's not a scam?" Then I hung up. Then I booked that vacation to Hawaii. Told myself it was overdue. Told myself Ben needed the ocean. Melissa and I needed time. But on that beach, camera aimed at Ben and the waves, I got a text from Eric. She had the surgery. Bill paid. I froze. That night, I stood on the hotel balcony and lit a cigarette. The first in a decade. Not because I was stressed, but because I was ashamed. Real shame doesn't come from being misunderstood. It comes from being seen clearly and realizing you failed the test. Not long after, I went to that retirement home. I didn't go inside, just watched from the lawn. She was there with a few other women planting roses, moving slowly, deliberately. Her sun hat tipped low. Her face calm, steady. Bill was there too, watering nearby. The two of them working together like they'd done it forever. I didn't walk closer, but I know she noticed me. She didn't wave, didn't turn, just slipped off her gloves and kept digging. And I understood. She wasn't angry anymore. She just didn't need me anymore. Since then, life's been hard. The school got new leadership. The new head wasn't a fan of what he called my old-fashioned views. My promotion got pulled. My performance file bounced back 3 times. After the bank layoffs, Melissa slipped into a deeper slump than mine. She tried teaching finance classes online, but barely anyone showed. We ended up cutting Ben's piano lessons. And honestly, I couldn't blame anyone but myself. I was just stuck in the aftermath of every choice I made or didn't. Then I started dreaming about Mom. In the dreams, I was a child again, sick, scared, clinging to her back as she rushed through the cold to get us to the air. One hand holding me, the other holding a pair of shoes. Her voice soft, steady. "Don't be afraid, baby. Mama's here." I'd wake up to a wet pillow and a heavy chest. So I wrote her a letter. She didn't open the first one. The second I made longer. I wrote it all. Every missed call, every excuse. All the times I chose easy over right. She didn't open that one either. The third, I folded into a copy of my favorite educational psychology book, the one she gave me in college, and sent it. This time she replied. Not with a letter. Just one line. "David, it's not that you didn't have chances. It's that every time you picked the wrong road." I cried like a kid who finally saw the damage he'd done. No more adult excuses to hide behind. Now I work at a nonprofit counseling center. Not a big job. Not great money. But for the first time in a long time I feel steady. Every Friday, I lead a seminar for high school students about family accountability, what it really means to show up for people. And I tell them, love isn't just a feeling. It's a duty. It only matters if you show up on time. I'm not sure I'll ever be able to fully make things right with her. But here's what I do know. If Mom's out there sitting in that garden with her hands deep in the dirt and sunlight warming her face, then maybe, just maybe, she can feel a bit of peace knowing that I finally stopped running. And for the first time, I can sit with that stillness and gently say, Mom, I'm not here asking to be forgiven. I just want you to know I truly did.